Marathon is a PvP-focused FPS extraction shooter game that removes the typical grunt style of nameless characters you play as in other extraction shooters, instead opting to focus on the hero shooter aesthetic. Build a loadout, accept a contract, and then get in and get out. That's the aim of the game. It's made by world-renowned developers Bungie, the original creators of Halo, and of course the creators of Destiny. Marathon itself is an IP that's been around since even before Halo, with the first installment releasing in 1994, and now in 2026 the franchise is back and heavily modernised. The game does have PvE elements, with various robot enemies lurking around points of interest, but it's clear that the core philosophy of the game revolves around exploding other people and taking everything they've got. An easy and immediate comparison can be drawn from Ark Raiders, another extraction shooter game that has recently came out. But that's where the comparisons end for me. Take scuba diving and snorkeling for example. Sure, they've both explored the ocean underwater, but you can't snorkel 40 meters deep into the sea. You have to scuba dive. But Kai, what do you mean by that? Well, I'm saying Marathon does not hold your hand as much as Ark Raiders does. And if you try to be upbeat, friendly and happy in Marathon as you would in Ark, you'll promptly be obliterated within seconds and picked clean before you've loaded back into the main menu. They're completely different experiences. The gunplay in Marathon is fast and unforgiving. The various character abilities and equipment in the game can change fights, but more often than not, pure and raw gun skill is what separates you from looting a corpse and becoming one. Marathon does not shy away from its PvP orientedness, like Ark Raiders does. Marathon being incredibly unapologetic in its sink or swim style to learn the game. You'll get your ass handed to you, over and over and over. But once you've got a grip of the fundamentals, that's when the game shines brightest. The player base is entirely made up of people who want to smash your head against a wall repeatedly until they can strip every morsel of loot from your body and keep for themselves. And I absolutely love that about this game. Hardly any talking, hardly any festivities, just raw, pure chaos, violence, loot and blue blood. The stress of finding valuables or completing a hard quest, then trying to get the last available extract only to see a large beacon in the sky indicating that another team is already trying to get out the same way, and having to get into a forced confrontation where the spoils go to the victor is exhilarating, thrilling and utterly addictive. The high stakes and high stress of every gunfight feels rewarding when you win and devastating when you lose. Marathon does this better than any other game of its type. For a game around robotic soulless shells being uploaded and printed at will to serve mega corporations, Marathon has perhaps the most soul of any multiplayer only game to have released in years. Each character voiced by incredibly talented voice actors, cinematics that wouldn't feel out of place in a high budget TV show, an art style to die for, and a soundscape to match. Marathon seems like the perfect recipe for major success, right? Look, the game isn't doing all that well. Launching without any endgame content, Bungie asked the game reviewers to hold off from giving their opinions on the game until after they released their Cryo Archive endgame update. A weekend only event where you have to play as a 3-stack and cooperate through puzzles and hard enemies aboard the Marathon ship itself. Also needing a loadout worth a minimum of 5,000 credits to even queue into the mode. Obviously, this is a bad decision as it immediately isolates the large majority of the player base from ever having a meaningful, consistent experience of an entire map. Pair this with the controversy surrounding the game prior to launch and the abundance of hate culture within the gaming space as a whole, and you've got yourself a failure waiting to happen. It's fitting that this game is called Marathon because Bungie's latest title hasn't stormed out of the gates in a sprint, instead opting to jog at a brisk pace, clearly aiming for the long-term vision. A marathon, not a sprint, as another game reviewer put it. But I really do fear the worst. A game with such an addictive playback loop and endless hours of quests, it's so clear to see the love and depth this game has to offer. But with a steady decline of Steam players already, and a hardly impressive sales launch, Marathon sadly needs help. It feels like the game is destined to fail. Destined to die. Bungie, help us. Help us that thoroughly enjoy this game, Such a devoted community is already formed around Marathon, and the game itself is heart-pumping, action-packed, and addictive. Whether it's getting the drop on some players and being able to pick off all of their valuables from their bodies, or barely extracting whilst the enemy descends upon your location, Marathon is full of thrills and endless fun for those who seek it. Sure, the menu design is confusing and lackluster, the stash screen somehow manages to be more of a pain than Arc Raiders', and the overall game optimization isn't the greatest, but the core game itself is worth the hassles. It really, really is. I was really skeptical at first, I was, but after nearly 30 hours I can comfortably recommend Marathon to players who have enjoyed the fighting of Arc Raiders, or enjoyed the early days of Apex Legends, or who yearn for a Call of Duty flavoured game with soul and actual art style for once. I hope Bungie puts the game on sale sooner rather than later, or coincides a major content drop with a free weekend of sorts, just to try and save the game from its inevitable demise. Hope is free after all, and even though I'm a glass half full kind of guy, Marathon's glass appears to be half empty. Other games are great, like Arc Raiders was my Game of the Year vote last year, but even that game lacks what Marathon has, and I can't put my finger on it. I'm drawn to Marathon. It feels natural to obsess and be in love with the game deep down. So I guess the label I'll put to describe that feeling is aura. I urge you to try Marathon even if you're a little curious, to ignore the hate cults of the internet piling onto the game for no real reason, to give it a chance, to help us save this beautiful game. Personally, Marathon is a 9 out of 10.